What if I told you that the reason most people never find strength isn't because life was unfair to them, but because they spend their entire lives looking for the easy way? We've been programmed to chase shortcuts, quick success, instant results, comfort over challenge. And yet, the irony is brutal. The more we chase easy, the harder our lives become. The Stoics knew this long before comfort became the default way of living. They knew that softness kills the soul faster than any failure ever could. They didn't chase ease, they chased endurance. They didn't pray for lighter burdens. They built stronger backs. You see, every time you choose easy, you trade potential for peace of mind, but that peace is fake. You scroll for hours, thinking you are relaxing, but you are draining your will. You avoid confrontation, thinking you are keeping harmony, but you are building resentment. You skip the hard work, thinking you are saving time, but you are slowly burying your discipline. Life is not supposed to be easy, it is supposed to test you. That is how it shapes you, that is how it earns you. Epictetus was born a slave and later became one of the greatest Stoic teachers. His entire philosophy was built on one principle, that the path of hardship is not punishment but preparation, he said. Do not seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do, and you will go on well. That's not passive acceptance. That's active transformation. The Stoic doesn't complain when life gets brutal. He sharpens himself within it. For he knows that the fire that burns the weak refines the strong. Modern life has sold us a lie. It tells us comfort is success. That happiness means safety, that peace means avoiding struggle, but that is not peace. That is paralysis. Look around you. We have machines that think for us, algorithms that decide for us, and comfort zones that are slowly suffocating us. And then we wonder why depression, anxiety, and restlessness surround us. We've numbed ourselves with convenience and lost touch with what keeps us alive: effort, resilience, and purpose. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced betrayal, plague, loss, and war, and never broke, he wrote. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's not just philosophy, that's survival. He didn't say avoid what hurts. He said use what hurts. Turn obstacles into oxygen. Turn pain into progress. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Why me?" he asks. "What can I do with this?" It is about choosing to walk through difficulty on purpose. It is about leaning into pain with awareness, not avoidance. When you stop looking for easy, you start finding growth. Every time you face something hard and stay, something inside you changes. You earn a new kind of peace, the kind that can't be taken by circumstances. That is what the Stoics trained for. Not comfort, but control. Not ease, but endurance. Here is the reality most can't handle. You can't build a powerful life if you avoid being uncomfortable. You can't find clarity in chaos if you've never trained your mind to stay still in the storm. You can't claim strength while your habits scream weakness. The brutal path isn't punishment. It is the forge. Every hardship, every setback, every rejection does not come into your life to destroy you. It comes into your life to refine you, to expose the fake and strengthen what is real. As Seneca once said, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. Think about that. Every time you go to the gym, you are literally tearing muscle fibers in order to rebuild them stronger. The same thing happens with your character. Life tears you down to rebuild your spirit. But only if you face it the moment you run, the moment you hide, the moment you seek easy. You surrender your power. So ask yourself, when was the last time you did something truly hard? When was the last time you went all in without a guarantee? When was the last time you faced pain instead of numbing it? The Stoic path isn't glamorous. It is not about quotes or morning routines. It is about choices. Raw, daily, honest choices. To show up when you are tired, to speak truth when it is unpopular, to stay disciplined when no one's watching. That is the brutal path. And that is where the real rewards live. Not in comfort, not in applause, but in mastery. Most people want the results without the resistance. They want growth without grind, peace without pressure, strength without struggle. But it doesn't work that way. This brutal path doesn't reward the wishful. It rewards the willing. The ones who stay, the ones who endure, the ones who don't need easy because they've built something harder, a mind that refuses to break. There is this saying in Stoicism, the greater the difficulty, the greater the glory. That is not poetic. That is a law. Every obstacle you encounter in life presents a new opportunity for you to prove to yourself who you are. Every challenge you overcome makes you more level-headed. And the more you resist the pull of comfort, the higher you rise from ordinary. Because at the end of the day, the easy road is going to make you soft, but the brutal path is where legends come from. So from now on, stop asking for easy days. Ask for strength. Stop praying for fewer problems. Pray for sharper perception. Stop wishing for comfort. Wish for clarity. Life will test you no matter what. You might as well become the kind of person who is built to be tested, because that is where freedom lives. Not in what is easy, but in what is earned. If you are still here, listening, it means something inside you already knows the truth. You are not here to coast. You are here to climb. You are not built for comfort. You are built for conquest. This is your reminder. Comfort doesn't care about your potential. It only cares about keeping you small. But struggle cares about your evolution. And that is why the Stoic chooses the brutal path. Because it is the only path that leads to real peace. Most people think strength is built in comfort, but that's the greatest illusion of our time. True strength, the kind that outlasts failure, heartbreak, betrayal, and chaos, is built when you stop negotiating with pain. The Stoics understood that comfort weakens, but struggle sharpens. They lived in a world where danger, war, and loss were part of daily existence, and yet they were calm. Why? Because they stopped asking for life to be gentle. They asked themselves to be greater. As Seneca once said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We waste it on comfort, distractions, validation. We waste it by running from the very things that could shape us. But life doesn't wait for the prepared. It rewards the trained. The brutal path is where you train your mind to act instead of react, to endure instead of escape. Every challenge is a classroom, every discomfort, a teacher, every struggle, a mirror showing you what is left to master. You see, the brutal path doesn't mean you enjoy pain. It means you stop fearing it. You understand that growth and suffering are twins. They come together, and when you resist one, you reject the other. The Stoic doesn't wish for an easy life. He wishes for a strong character. Marcus Aurelius confronted endless nights of loss and war. Yet he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." That is it, direct, ruthless, simple. The Stoic doesn't talk about doing hard things. He does them. The problem with our generation isn't a lack of opportunity. It's a lack of struggle. We've built a world so soft that strength now looks extreme. But softness is the enemy of greatness. The easy path gives you comfort now, but regret later. The brutal path gives you pain now, but pride forever. You decide which pain you want to live with. Because life will hurt either way. The difference is whether it hurts because you grew or because you quit. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." The same applies to your mind. You can't meditate your way to strength without discipline. You can't affirm your way to greatness without work. You can't post quotes about resilience while avoiding every hard truth about yourself. The Stoic path is brutal because it forces you to face yourself, your laziness, your fears, your excuses. It strips away every illusion and leaves you standing face to face with your own potential. And that confrontation, that's where transformation begins. Ask yourself this: what do you do when no one is watching? Do you fold when it gets uncomfortable? Or do you stay? Do you chase dopamine or discipline? The Stoic knows that the most important battles are silent, fought in the mind, not in the world. He doesn't need validation, applause, or reward. His reward is mastery over himself. Because if you can't command your own thoughts, you'll be enslaved by them. And that's the worst kind of slavery. The invisible kind. Every time you seek ease, you strengthen your dependence on it. Every time you choose the harder way, you strengthen your independence. The modern world tells you to treat yourself, take it easy, don't stress. But the Stoic says the opposite. Test yourself, challenge yourself, embrace stress, because it is the gym where the soul grows. If you don't lift the weight of discomfort, your mind stays weak. Seneca prepared for loss by visualizing the death of those he loved. Not because he was cold, but because he wanted to be ready to love them more deeply now. Knowing time is fragile. That is what the brutal path does. It teaches you appreciation through adversity. It makes you grateful, not because everything's easy, but because you've learned to endure when nothing is. You want to know why the Stoics are still quoted thousands of years later? Because they didn't speak from theory, they spoke from battle. They lived what they taught. Their lives were their philosophy. Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing meditations to impress anybody. He was writing to survive the chaos of power, betrayal, and decay. Epictetus wasn't preaching luxury. He was born a slave, crippled, and yet he built freedom within. That is the brutal path. Not glamorous, not comfortable, but real. The easy path is full of noise. The brutal path is full of silence. Silence where you meet yourself. Silence where you rebuild your will, and silence where you realize no one is coming to save you. And that realization is liberation. For in the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you start to become your own hero. Most people think motivation is enough, but motivation fades. The Stoic doesn't rely on emotion, he relies on principle. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you alive. The brutal path strips away the highs and lows of emotion until only clarity remains. And that clarity, that cold, unshakable understanding of what must be done, that's where peace lives. So next time life is unfair or hard or cruel, remember, it is supposed to be. It is not a glitch in the system. It is the system. Life is designed to challenge you into consciousness. Look for easy, and you miss the lesson. Take the brutal with calm, and life opens up in ways comfort never could. And maybe that is the paradox that the Stoics mastered. True peace doesn't come from escaping pain, but by enduring it with a purpose. True freedom isn't doing what you want, it is doing what is right. And the brutal path, the one you are trying to avoid, is the only one that leads to greatness. No motivational talk here. This is your reminder that the ancient world wasn't raising quitters. It was raising thinkers, warriors, and philosophers. People who didn't need validation to do what mattered. They didn't scroll for purpose. They created it. They didn't wait for clarity. They built it through consistency. And if you want that same unshakable strength, stop asking, how can I make this easier? Ask instead, how can I become stronger? Because the question you ask determines the life you live. The first leads to comfort. The second leads to mastery. The Stoics chose mastery, and so can you. Remember, comfort is the opiate of the weak struggle, the awakening of the strong. The choice has always been yours. There is a reason you keep hearing the phrase, the brutal path. It is because most people will never walk it. They'll look at it, talk about it, even admire it, but they won't step into it. Because the brutal path is not about surviving, it is about transforming. The Stoics knew this. Easy lives make soft minds, and soft minds break fast. Epictetus said, difficulties show what men are. You don't know who you are until something tries to destroy you. That is when masks fall, lies die, and truth steps forward. The brutal path isn't about adding pain. It is about finally facing the pain that has been there all along. The one you've avoided for decades under layers of comfort and distraction. It is in the burning away of illusion until what is left is real. Think of your own life. How many times have you chosen comfort over courage? How many times have you delayed your growth for the sake of convenience? You said you'd start tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. The Stoic knows tomorrow is a lie. It is the word the weak use to justify hesitation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That is not dramatic. That is discipline. That is the awareness that time is your most brutal teacher, and the clock is undefeated. Music shifts, rhythmic beat, heartbeat tempo. The Stoics practice something called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils every morning. They pictured loss, betrayal, death, disaster, not to suffer them in advance, but to prepare their minds. They knew that when you expect the storm, you stop fearing the thunder. When you rehearse hardship, hardship loses its sting. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." That is the essence of the brutal path, friction. The rub between your potential and your resistance. Every hard moment, every rejection, every loss. They're the polishing stones of the soul. But if you refuse friction, you stay dull. You stay ordinary. Most of the people in modern times are addicted to avoiding friction. They avoid hard work, hard talks, hard truths. They build whole lives around avoiding pain, and then call it peace. But avoidance isn't peace. It is paralysis, and it costs you everything real. The Stoic path is about doing the opposite, facing life head on rather than hiding from it. It is about walking into discomfort voluntarily so that when chaos comes, it finds you already trained. You can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how prepared you are when it arrives. That is what makes the Stoic mindset terrifyingly powerful. It is not about faking or pretending to be emotionless. It is about being emotionally disciplined, to feel the pain fully but never bow to it, feeling anger, fear, and sadness, and yet still acting with reason. The music deepens, heavy drums fading under soft strings. Marcus Aurelius led an empire through plague, war, and betrayal, and yet he wrote nightly in his journal about gratitude, virtue, and perspective. Imagine that, the most powerful man in the world reminding himself to stay humble, to stay rational, to stay kind. That's the brutal path, not being controlled by power or comfort, but being ruled by principle. And that is where most people fail. They think strength means domination, but to the Stoic, it means self-mastery, to rule yourself when everything outside of you collapses, when your plans fall apart, when the people you trusted betray you, when your mind whispers that you are not enough. The Stoic doesn't try to escape those moments. He trains for them. The brutal path is the training ground of kings and thinkers alike. It is not glamorous. It is cold, lonely, repetitive. You'll wake up some days and want to quit. You'll wonder why you are still fighting when everyone else seems to have found comfort. But the people who choose comfort are building a fragile peace, one that shatters at the first hit of reality. The Stoic builds a fortress inside, not because he expects calm, but because he expects chaos. Music slows, faint piano keys start echoing, one note at a time. Epictetus said, "We suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them." That's where freedom begins, in perception. You can't always change the situation, but you can always change the story you tell about it. And that shift from victim to victor, that's the turning point of the brutal path. The weak man asks, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic asks, "How is this shaping me?" Whereas the weak man would complain about obstacles, the Stoic uses them as opportunities. Whereas the weak man seeks escape, the Stoic seeks endurance. Ask yourself, what kind of mind do you want to build? One that collapses when the world shifts, or one that commands stillness in every storm? That is the power of Stoic endurance. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of unshakable calm within it. The kind that makes people wonder why you are so composed while they're panicking. Music deepens. Low hum of wind and brass. There is something magnetic about stillness in chaos. Because it is rare, most are driven by emotion. But the Stoic trains his mind to drive emotion. He doesn't react, he responds. He doesn't explode. He observes. He doesn't fall apart. He recalibrates. That is why the brutal path rewards him. Life bends to the one who doesn't bend to it. The Stoic does not seek comfort, because he knows comfort will never prepare him for reality. He embraces what hurts because he knows reality won't spare him from it, and it is that gives him power, not an illusion of control, but mastery of self. Music rises, strings swell with quiet determination. As Seneca once said, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." That's the final layer of the brutal path. Contentment not because life is easy, but because you have learned to be enough even when it's hard. You stop fighting reality. You start flowing with it. And ironically, that's when life starts to cooperate with you. Not because it got easier, but because you got disciplined. You see, the brutal path doesn't reward those who avoid. It rewards those who adapt. It rewards those who face discomfort so often that it becomes their teacher. Because when everyone else runs from the fire, the Stoic walks through it and finds himself reborn on the other side. There is a place along the brutal path where the pain no longer feels like punishment. It starts to feel like purification. The Stoics knew this moment well, the shift in which suffering becomes sacred. It is that particular place at which your mind stops asking, "How do I escape this?" and starts asking, "How do I evolve from this?" That is when life begins to reveal its deeper lessons. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." That is the heart of Stoic freedom. The power to revoke suffering by reframing it. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of difficulty and start seeing difficulty as the architect of your strength. That is what separates the fragile from the free. Most people fall apart under stress because they never learn to carry it. The Stoic carries it daily. Not because he enjoys the weight, but because he knows every ounce of struggle makes him sturdier. It is the brutal path that doesn't break you, but uncovers your limits so that you can extend them. You'll get something far rarer. Peace. Not the fragile kind that breaks under pressure, but the deep, immovable peace that comes when nothing can touch your center. That is the Stoic's victory. He is not chasing outcomes. He is embodying order in a disordered world. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is the final test of this path, freedom through discipline, because the brutal path strips away everything fake until only your essence remains. It leaves you with no illusions, no dependencies, no masks, just the truth. And that truth, that is your weapon. That is your peace. That is your legacy. Most people spend their lives avoiding this level of clarity because it costs everything they think they are. But the Stoic doesn't fear that loss. He embraces it. He understands that destruction is not the opposite of creation. It is part of it. You must burn to become. You must break to be reborn. That is what the brutal path has been about all along. The slow, painful, necessary destruction of the false self, so the real one can emerge. You no longer need to pretend. You no longer need the illusion of control. You no longer need to escape. You simply exist. Aware, awake, unafraid. That is what makes the Stoic unstoppable. He doesn't escape storms. He becomes the calm within them. He doesn't avoid pain. He finds purpose in it. He doesn't demand ease. He demands excellence. You've walked through chaos. You've tasted loneliness. You've faced your fears. You've rebuilt your will, and now you stand different, quieter, stronger, clearer. You no longer need the world to go your way because you've learned to go your own. That is what the brutal path gives you. Not the illusion of control, but the reality of composure. When others are lost, you'll be still. When others give up, you'll move forward. When others break, you'll bend and return stronger. That is Stoic freedom. Not because life got kinder, but because your mind became harder. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "To be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's your mind now. The rock, the storm doesn't stop. You just stop breaking. The brutal path rewards the ones who stay, not with comfort, but with clarity, not with praise, but with peace, not with ease, but with excellence. That is the paradox. The harder the path, the greater the person. For ease has never built anything worth admiring, but only the brutal. So when life hits again, and it will, just remember this. It is not coming at you to destroy you. It is coming to discipline you. That every hardship, that every pain, every delay is sharpening your soul. When it is over, you will look back and realize the path you were so afraid to journey through was the very thing that set you free. Music slows, one long note sustains, glowing like sunrise. You are no longer waiting for easy. You are walking the brutal path, eyes open, heart steady, mind sovereign. And in that stillness, you will find something the world will never understand. Peace through pain, power through presence, freedom through fortitude. That is the Stoic way. The only way